Welcome to the Third Win channel, where today we're discussing 10 conspiracy theories with my friend Nick. Introduce yourself.
No.
Okay, brilliant. But without further ado, let's get into 10 of the most
Insert
discussed.
Discord noises.
Yes, 10 of the most discussed conspiracy theories. So, number one, or not number one, but first up we got the 1969 moon landing conspiracy, which basically goes like it never happened. And do you have any initial thoughts on this, Nick?
It happened.
Yeah. So the
Next.
no, well, really quickly, like the claims are about like the shadows kind of not lining up the right way. The flag is moving and there's no wind, or like why isn't there a crater when the module lands, and things something about the pictures being inconsistent and different artifacts. And there's just loads of conspiracies that can all be proven against, I think. But
Not proven.
proven against,
Not proven though. What do you mean?
yeah, not proven, no,
It's
like
not proven. You
no, I mean like proven not to
pee
be
pee poo poo.
not real, not to be real. Like the conspiracies are proven not to be true. That's what I
Oh
mean.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, just watch the MythBusters episode on the moon landings.
that's the one I've seen as well, and I think
Yeah, there
that's
you go.
enough. But there's so many, and I think the only one that I find interesting in all of this is the one which talks about how so much data is missing from the flight itself, and the whole, like how the blueprints are all missing, and just a lot of this important
What
data
blueprints?
from the ship itself, I don't know, from the day itself. I read it,
No, those exist.
and also
There's no way.
all the math and the computer papers, like they're all like missing from the day itself.
There's no way that that's actually a thing. NASA doesn't just lose their blueprint. Well, they're not the blueprints. That belongs to other companies, but
Well, there's definitely like significant data missing. I don't remember what their reasoning for that was, but there is some interesting stuff there.
insert Apollo lunar module
But
documentation after 3 seconds of Google searching. Suck my brown pee pee poo poo.
I think we can conclude that it did happen, and there's just not enough evidence to support otherwise. And it's just silly, like in the grand scheme of things. Although I will say that it is a fun idea that it was all filmed in a studio somewhere in Hollywood. I think it's fun.
Hey, that's
Uh,
hilarious.
yeah,
Except
yeah.
it's wrong. So get
But just
wrecked,
imagine if
everyone
they
who
actually
thinks
did,
that
though.
this didn't happen.
Imagine if they actually did that and got away with it. That would be insane.
I can't. Do you know why?
Yeah, because it's not
Because they
true.
actually did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah, let's move on. Number two, we
I thought we
got.
were doing a tier list.
No, we're not. We're not. We're just discussing different conspiracy
Well, I
theories.
mean, yeah, clearly we're not, but okay.
Next up, we got the Paul is dead
Paul is dead.
conspiracy theory, which says that basically Paul was, well, he died in
Dead.
a car crash in 1966, and he was replaced by a look-alike. And some of the kind of different things that support this conspiracy theory are that they stopped doing live shows after 66. They changed their image to the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Club Hearts Band, I think the album is called, where they all got into different costumes and they kind of took on different roles. People cite like his appearance changes from those like 2 years. So what do you think about this one?
I don't know what to think about it. I like the Beatles, but
Not
um,
not super connected to this one.
nah, not really. It
Yeah.
is a fun idea, but I mean,
Some of the more wacky stuff.
here's the thing. Here's the thing with like all these conspiracy theories is like if you like you have to make so many assumptions. Like
Yeah.
there's this thing called Occam's razor, which I don't, I assume there was some guy named Occam who was just like, you know what? If there are two things that could have happened, the one that requires the fewest amount of assumptions is significantly more probable. So like when you go out assuming all this random bullshit, like, oh, all these things had to happen for this to work. When you
Yeah.
think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a lot of things that had to happen for this to work.
But
So
also,
probably didn't happen.
it only takes like I totally agree with that. But like if you think about it, it only takes one piece of evidence to debunk a whole thing, right? So like why haven't any why hasn't anything conclusive come out about him being dead? Like there has like you can't pull off a switcheroo for 40 years. It just especially when you're the biggest band in the world. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that's the fantasy, is that, well, you could. It's just you'd have to do all of this crazy stuff.
Yeah,
And it gets to the
yeah.
point where you can just keep saying, "Oh, but then this, but then this, but then this," and it's like, well, I mean, fuck me, dude. I guess it could happen,
Well, I
but
think
it's
one
just
thing
so
that's
unlikely.
really interesting is it's actually really easy to come up with reasonings for things. Like people are like, oh, his teeth look slightly different, and they're like, oh, the reasoning was because he got his teeth changed or something like that. Like it's really easy to come up with.
Yes, he
Um,
got his teeth changed. He just went into the shop and got a quick teeth change.
come on, Nick. You know British people and their teeth.
Teeth change.
Yeah, no, like corrections, I guess. But I guess some of the wackier stuff with this theory is like that there's backwards messages in the songs that say like Paul is buried or like stuff like that. But I don't really want to get into that because it is really far.
Illuminati.
Yeah,
Confirm.
you get really into it then. But I think this one, I'll agree with you. I don't think there's too much light to it. Next up, we got the Area 51 slash like Roswell crash conspiracies, which say that basically there have been cases where there have been UFO crashes and different kind of sightings of aliens being tested on, and all this at Area 51. And if for those who don't know, there was a crash early, kind of in the mid 19 not yeah 1900s, which happened. And then a newspaper came out that said there was a saucer that crashed, and then that was quickly corrected later on, saying that it was a weather balloon that had fallen. That's why there's also all the aluminum and that. But what people are curious about is all these trucks and mysterious men in suits, and why there's so much kind of secrecy around it. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Um, I mean, big Air Force base doing missile tests and things. Like, it makes sense. They can't, show things. But then again, the fantasy of, oh, but, what if it could? I mean, I think that there are aliens, but, I feel like if they were here, we would definitely be aware of it. Because how the fuck is government gonna hide aliens coming into the Earth? Unless they literally all, like, came to the Earth and, like, you'd have to make a billion other assumptions about the nature of this, secret Men in Black kind of future.
Well, unless they are smart enough to be able to conceal themselves in a way which we just cannot
Well,
see.
exactly. That's a
Yeah.
massive assumption that you have to make.
Of course,
So,
of
like,
course.
if
Yeah.
there were, I mean, if aliens were to come, like, the most likely situation is that we would all be in the know, is
Yeah.
what I think.
But if I think that what's interesting is that if they did conclusively know, like they saw alien literally fell and they have it in their lab and they're like, holy crap, what is this? Like, would they reveal that to the public? Probably not, I'd say. I don't know. What are your
You have
thoughts
to
on that?
say that, well, then you have to say that there's an extremely crazy, dice roll that the alien somehow lands where there's only government, and that's very little of the world. Most of the world is either not, completely controlled by the government or just empty. So
Yeah,
the odds that all the aliens that have been here land in that one spot where, no one else ever sees them is just so extremely unlikely that, you know,
and I
I mean, it's
mean,
just so much stuff has to work perfectly for this to happen.
looking like not this picture, but looking at some of the debris, it really does look like a weather balloon. Like it just looks like exactly what they describe. So I
What,
don't.
this picture?
No, not this picture. Like a different one. But like in short, my opinions on this, like I don't think that the Roswell stuff is that deep. I think that it was just like an incident and the newspaper got it wrong. But there's definitely probably some information that the government knows about UFOs. It doesn't have to be aliens that we don't know about. I'd say.
I mean, they did just do this massive unclassified, unclassifying of a bunch of UFO stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's them aliens!" And then basically people who work with images were like, "Nope, it's a reflection, or it's an infrared, whatever, or it's, as you said, weather balloon."
Yeah, I don't
I
think
think
that
that I mean I
everything
think
can be
it's
explained though. Like there can be images and videos of stuff that you can't just like look at like the 30 FPS video in low quality and say, "Oh yeah, that's a infrared blah blah blah." Like some stuff is just you can't explain. Like it doesn't
But by
have to
that
be an
same
alien.
token,
Yeah.
you can also, what's more likely, an alien or, weather
Exactly.
balloon or thermal whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
The reason the conspiracy theory is so interesting and like attractive is just because it's like, whoa, that could totally happen. But then you blind yourself from, oh, but so much stuff has to work out perfectly, and all this stuff on its own is already so unlikely that, you know, like statistically speaking, it's like impossible almost.
Yeah. I'd agree with you. I don't think Area 51 in Roswell was that deep. I think it's just an
Being
incident.
said, let's see them aliens.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Moving on, we have secret societies, and I left this one fairly vague, but it's basically the idea of some sort of very powerful society, like the New World Order kind of stuff, like the Illuminati kind of stuff. Like that, there's a society of either that kind of tree where there's like an old society of people that control events like world wars and plagues and whatnot, or the satanic theories where there's like oh people are in on it and everyone's kind of worshiping the devil and celebrities like basically these big powerful secret societies, the conspiracies about them. Do you have any thoughts about them?
And honestly, I don't think it's a super interesting theory because, like, I mean, not only could there totally be secret societies, but you know, like there definitely are. The question is just how influential they are. Now that's the interesting theory. If they're super influential, then it's like, whoa, I mean, the thing is, like all these theories, it's the same story. It's, oh my God, this crazy thing could totally happen, and it's like, well, yeah, it totally could. It's extremely unlikely. In this case, it's interesting because it's a lot more likely, just because so much less crazy stuff that doesn't make sense has to happen for this to work. So,
Mm.
I mean, it's definitely plausible. I'd say of all the ones we've seen, this one is probably the most likely
Yeah, I
to
do
be
think
true.
it's really creepy, and like the thought of like I don't know, 100 really influential people sitting or knowing about this club, and they kind of have a timeline for things like, okay, in 5 years this is gonna happen, and that's we do this because of this or population control or just like this exactly like the New World Order. Like there's a global government that kind of creates the illusion that there isn't. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I think that's an interesting thought, but yeah, it's again like you said, it's hard to talk about these conspiracies and say, oh, that's true or that's not true. Like you have to make a lot of assumptions. So yeah, any final thoughts on this one?
No, I said my piece.
All right, moving on. We got the JFK assassination, which I mean, I'm not terribly interested in, but it seems like it's like the biggest one of like the biggest ones in the US. Like people are just crazy about this one. Do you have any thoughts initially on it?
I'm not really sure what you're talking about. You mean that like his assassination was plotted like by
Well,
someone in
there's
this
just
government, or
like
what
if
do you
you go
mean?
to the Wikipedia page for the JFK assassination conspiracies, there's like a list. There's so many. But some of the most popular ones are like that there maybe were multiple gunmen, that Oswald didn't act alone. Some like tampering with evidence. Uh, there's witnesses that haven't been identified that are kind of suspicious. And there's also the ties with the CIA and the JFK's kind of political movements that weren't popular with the government, and maybe that you know, they planned to kill him, to stop him, or because they didn't like him, basically.
I mean, I mean, he still dies in all of these theories. So, I mean, just honestly, it doesn't sound super, super interesting just because, like, guy's still dead. I
Yeah,
don't know. This one's not super interesting to me. Maybe it's not
No,
from my time so much, but
no,
I don't
it's
know.
not super
What
interesting
do you
for me
think?
either. I think if I were to want to get rid of a guy, as if I were the military, like why would you do it so publicly? That's what I'm wondering, right?
That's another big reason.
Like why wouldn't they just poison his breakfast and say that he had a stroke? Um, I don't
He
know.
just had too much sauce on the eggs.
Exactly. Like why do this huge public sniper? Like of all things, this is the flashiest killing you can do. Um, so yeah, it's not terribly interesting, and it just doesn't make that much sense. Although it is weird that a guy would snipe him twice. I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. We don't have too much to say about this one. Let's move on to Big Pharma, which is one that I find really interesting. Which is basically the theory that pharmaceutical companies, which make a lot of money for what they produce, they basically just want to keep people sick. And either the theory that medicine doesn't do as much as we think it does, or it actually purposely makes us sick or keeps giving us different sicknesses that linger or cause other sicknesses, so that we buy more medicine. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no. I mean, personally, I just think this one's kind of cringe just because it's, so incredibly popular with conspiracy theorists. It's like, oh, just because financially they would have an interest in this one thing means that they're going to abuse, they're going to make it exacerbate this thing so that people get, um, people have to buy their services more. Like, I mean, it's like, are you just going to generalize that? Okay, so only big pharma does it, but all the other businesses that have special interests definitely don't do it, or it's also not a conspiracy for those.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, it's
And
a little
all of them would
inconsistent
have
just
to
because it's sorry.
all of them would have to act together as well, all the companies. So
Yeah, not only that, but a lot of things that are super expensive, like you can now buy generic versions that are extremely cheap and like super affordable. And it's just the hospitals, buy the expensive stuff, and then the insurance companies, pay for it way more than they should because the whole system is this is in the US, of course, and the rest of the world. I mean, that's another thing too. The US is like a massive share of the world's pharmaceutical development and just in general like pharmaceuticals. So like a big reason of why they're probably so expensive in general is just because, they're made here in the States where it's a fortune to make. But when you can find a generic version that's like the same way, that's like the same, basically the same thing, but you didn't have to pay for all that research, it's like, hell yeah,
yeah,
you know.
I
Although it
for
does kind of
me
suck for the big companies that spent like so much money trying to develop these drugs, but
for me the theory that they all work together to make you sick is stupid, because you'd have to
oh
expand
yeah,
that
for
to a
sure.
global scale, which just doesn't make any sense to me. But what does make sense is maybe that they kind of recommend using more medicine than you actually need, maybe, or
Oh, they totally do.
yeah.
That actually happened. Here in the US, there was a massive, I say was, but it kind of is still happening. There was a massive opioid epidemic or whatever. Well, maybe not
Hmm.
epidemic, but crisis where basically these companies kept sending reps to doctors and like, bringing them out to dinner and like just kind of advertising to them a lot, giving them special sampling things of their opioids, and then the doctors would kind of like end up prescribing it way more, and then like you end up people getting opioids when they kind of don't need them or when they very
Hmm.
much don't need them,
Yeah.
and now like a buttload of people are addicted.
Yeah. No.
And I mean that's I mean that's not even really a conspiracy, like that actually has been verified. There was a massive lawsuit that, or maybe still is, I'm not sure, for one of these pharmaceutical companies that did this kind of stuff, and they were found to be guilty, I believe.
I mean, they are
I need to check that. But
they are pharmaceutical. No, I wanted to say they are a business after all. So any way they're gonna try to like get money, and like they're built to make money. So any kind of way they can not fool people, but like maybe um I don't know, squeeze that extra buck. Then and maybe it makes sense to sell cough drops that don't do so much, but still label them as medicine, or I don't know. But I think we can move on from this one. Hitler fled instead of killed himself. That's the theory, that he fled to South America and he lived out his like 15, 20 years in Argentina. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I mean, if he did that, it was pretty lame because literally nothing else has happened since then. So if he did do that, it's a pretty lame theory. But if he, so that, yeah, I mean,
What's interesting about this one is that
mm,
there's almost more witnesses to him being in Argentina than there are of him dying and getting burned with his family. Like there's only a certain few amount of people who can say yes, I saw that, or yes, I can confirm Hitler killed himself, blah blah blah. Um,
yeah, when the Soviets went to Berlin, they actually found his burnt body because like everyone in the Führer bunker or whatever was burnt after.
mhm.
And like they said, they had trouble verifying that it was him. They had to find dental records. They had like doctors go, and like eventually they said, yeah, it was him. But being the Soviet Union and being that the Soviet Union was kind of ass at everything, and also has had a massive rap sheet of lying.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is kind of likely. It's possible that they didn't find his body. I mean, maybe he fled. Maybe he died some other way, or was another body. Um, which I think is like kind of likely just
yeah,
given what we know. But I mean, yeah, he could have totally, escaped or
because
whatever. There would be no way of knowing. And that's
there are
why the
some
conspiracy exists.
people who like in Argentina. Obviously, Argentina has huge ties with Germany anyway, but there are some people who are like, oh yeah, like that guy was here. He passed by for 3 days. La la la. So I haven't looked into it a bunch, but I think it's one of those where it's totally realistic that it could have happened, and it's um
Oh, yeah, for sure.
we just wouldn't really know.
This this stuff happens all the time
It's not
with
that
like,
it, yeah. I guess the thing that makes it a bit of a like, conspiracy theory and kind of controversial is that he got to live out his days instead of being punished. But
well, a lot of Nazis ended up escaping and living out their days, probably. I mean,
yeah,
there was one who escaped to Argentina who like stayed for ages, and then Mossad went and like got him or killed him or whatever, brought him back to Israel. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, no, that's the thing. The reason it's kind of plausible is just because it happens, but like
yeah,
not necessarily Hitler, we don't know, but a bunch of other Nazi people, German whatever's, they fled to Argentina, Brazil, you know,
yeah. So
conceivably other countries in South America and tried to live their lives.
yeah, so for this one, like this is totally possible. Like some of the ones we've had are completely whack crazy, but this one it isn't actually as crazy as it seems. Moving on,
Yeah,
that
maybe
we
not.
got like I didn't want to say COVID or anything like that, but I just disease origins.
Say
Like, are
COVID,
there?
put in thumbnail, big clickbait.
No, no. But like basically the idea that have there any of the big like there's a conspiracy theory about AIDS being fabricated in a lab. There's obviously one about COVID being fabricated in a lab. Like, could there, you know, do you think that it's possible that someone might have done this on purpose?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's possible. It's extremely unlikely. The funny thing with COVID though is that they're actually like at the start, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it could have been from the Wuhan lab or whatever," and then it was like, "Oh wait, shit, nah, it wasn't. It was definitely like this other thing." And then like a few months ago, again, everyone was like, "But actually, wait a minute. What if it actually was from the lab? Because it seems like it actually may have." It's just so confusing. Like, well, I mean, obviously, COVID is right now, so we have no like we don't know. Odds
Yeah,
are. I'd say it's probably likely that it's just some random bullshit, but I wouldn't be surprised if, a lab in China fucked up and, you know, China's trying to cover. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's possible, and it doesn't not make sense. It's just
yeah.
not as likely as, these other things.
Because they definitely
But,
have.
could people design diseases? Yeah. I mean, people have done it all the
Because
time. Anthrax was designed, I think, right?
from a political or like I don't know war perspective, there's a huge advantage to for that for if China were to do something terrible like this, like they weaken the West or whatever, like there's definitely reasons why they could pull something like this if they were all out war. But it's kind of hard to talk about because we just don't know.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna if we're speaking about COVID specifically, I think probably not. I mean, I think wasn't anthrax made by like terrorists in the Middle East? Like, and if
Yeah, I think
terrorists,
so.
in a shitty ass cave can make anthrax, then China can do a way better job. Like, if they were trying to do a bio-terrorist attack on the world, like they would do a better job. I don't think that this is. Well, first of all, I
A
really don't
slowly
think they would
mutating
do some
disease that's quite subtle, I think
kind
is
of
exactly what
lame.
they would go for. No?
Well, if it kills all of the,
They don't want to
kills
kill
people who are
everyone
not
though.
necessarily,
They
well,
they they just want to weaken the West and the economy.
I mean, that's also plausible, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess when
Okay.
you put it that way, I guess that's possible. It's just
Yeah. It's
even, yeah, even
it's
with that layer, still unlikely, but I mean,
yeah. So something of
because if they
this.
got discovered, they're gonna lose the influence they have in the East. If they get discovered, like the countries that are friends with them, who also lost, people due to COVID and stuff, and also suffered, because it wasn't just the West; it was a lot of the world. A
All of the
lot less
world.
the East, but yeah, pretty much all the world. So
Yeah.
like if it were to come to light that, oh, China actually did this shit, literally the entire world would like shit
Turn
on them
turn
for
on them.
decades. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the world got 9/11, except a lot less emotional because it all didn't happen in one day.
Yeah.
Even though
But
like way more people died, which is
but
crazy to think about. But
nature has proven that it's quite good at stuff like this. Like it's actually much
oh yeah, for
better
sure.
at doing things like this than humans are. So I
Yeah,
think it's more likely that it's natural.
the Earth is just like a massive petri dish, like designed for making superbugs and crazy diseases. Just
Yeah.
because like we're all so connected now, we fly everywhere, which is great, but when it comes to disease, it's a complete ass.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
as you said, just shit being more or less likely
Let's move on.
as usual.
Next we got 9/11. I think we can make this one quick. Do you think that there was do you think that it
I'm
do you
sorry.
think that the US government had anything to do with 9/11?
No.
No.
It would be so sad if they did, but no.
The only
I don't
arguments
see
I've
the
seen,
motivation. Like
yeah,
we went to the Middle East, we got nothing out of it. It was
especially
so
now,
expensive and a
it's
pain in
interesting
the ass.
to talk about it now because now it's just you got nothing out
Oh,
of it.
you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah, because we just pulled out, like
and
actually pulled out.
Biden revealed today that he would declassify all 9/11 documents in the coming days. So that's also interesting.
Sweet.
So it leans towards like that this was like going to Afghanistan was almost out of anger and a bit of an
It
emotional
was definitely
decision.
for the ratings. Plus, it's great for
Yeah,
the U.S. weapons contractors because now they have an excuse to make a bunch more weapons, which means more money from the government, which means America economy room. Like some of the best things that ever happened to the United States was war. World War II turned the U.S. from like it used to be
industrial.
kind of a Norway to now superpower with peace
Yeah,
and love to Norway. I mean, honestly, Norway based. When you're like just doing your own thing, not minding the rest of the world, that's the best. It's the healthiest for your people. It's
yeah. The the
but
only the only thing about 9/11, the only like argument that I read recently, which was interesting, was like when people knew that the airplanes were headed towards, or they were out of course, and they knew that it was hijacked. Why don't they? Why didn't they take any interventionist actions? Like, U.S. has so many different military equip things, planes, equipment that could have helped, like, at least not save the people on board, but maybe protect people that are in the towers or whatnot. You get where I'm going with this. Like, why wasn't there any intervention?
well, I mean, it never happened before, so you assume like, oh, like okay, it's hijacked. What do they want? Are they going to try and fly somewhere else? The first thing you'd think is they're not going to, the first thing you think is they're not going to crash into a building. When you think of
No.
hijackings, normally there's a ransom, normally, they maybe are stealing the plane, who knows? Mostly it's ransoms. It's not, this kind of fucked up backwards shit. Like the stuff that happened
Yeah.
Was unexpected. So the
Like,
military response being late does kind of make sense. Although obviously in hindsight, you know, send the F-16s
but
up, shoot the
obviously
planes down.
at the
But
time they didn't have any policies for passenger airplanes getting hijacked flying towards military buildings. You know, they don't have.
maybe they had policies, but it just hadn't happened yet. So like when are you supposed to know that that you have to make that call? Is it
Mm,
when, the hijackers, like when is it? So, obviously maybe there's some incompetence. Maybe the government should have been more prepared. Honestly, the government
mm,
probably should have been a little more prepared for this situation or this kind of, or just for terrorist threats in
that's right.
general.
Yeah.
But that's very easy to say in hindsight when,
No, no, I
it had been
think.
relatively peaceful here in in the Americas.
But think about it. Like one thing, like despite like aside from the conspiracy theory, it's pretty crazy that they plotted to hijack was three planes, fly one potentially into the White House, one into the Twin Towers, and one into the Pentagon. And they succeeded in hijacking all three planes, kind of. And I just think that the idea of those three buildings is pretty insane,
Oh no, it's
and
bizarre.
it's rightfully
It
one of the most insane events in human history.
it's one of the things where if it hadn't happened and they got caught, that would be a conspiracy theory. Like, oh, they were gonna crash into the buildings, like, and that's why it's so the conspiracy theory thing is so interesting because like some of these crazy things actually end up becoming true. Like, if 9/11 hadn't happened, like there might have been a conspiracy. Oh, they were gonna get the towers, like, and everyone would probably be like, nah, those, you guys are a bunch of idiots. There's no way. But like,
Yeah. I think it's really
it ended
interesting as
up
well
actually happening.
the plane that was flying, or people were like, I don't think it was ever confirmed, but people thought maybe that it was flying towards the White House, but the people on the plane managed to take down the hijackers, and with their lives as well. You've read about this, right?
Well, I saw there's a great documentary somewhere that went through all the events of 9/11,
Yeah,
and it was yeah, nah, mega based. Go America.
yeah,
Yeehaw.
yeah. It was
Rest in
awesome.
peace, brave souls. Yeah, it's
Yes,
freaking badass.
yeah. But let's move on. Let's move on. This one is a bit dry.
And
Um,
also literally in a week the anniversary of said
yeah,
event.
yeah. Maybe not. Yeah. Well, let's move on to a more less dark one. But it's one. We'll take this one really quick.
So
But
let's move
like,
on to a more or less dark one.
yes, English is strong.
English
Shakespeare,
good.
basically, there's a theory that Shakespeare wasn't one person, or maybe he wasn't the author at all, that maybe there's a group of people who went as, came forward as Shakespeare, or that Shakespeare's plays were written by someone else, and that Shakespeare was just some kind of cover name. Um, there's not super interesting, I know, but I think it's interesting to think about a little bit. What do you think?
Mm. Well, personally, I'm not super interested. I mean, this is so long ago. It's like
Yeah,
maybe not. It's just not particularly interesting to me. I'm not super interested in like
yeah.
literature, I guess. I don't know.
All I'd say is, I guess, the similarities between the plays in terms of writing would be hard to look past. You can't have a group of four people writing exactly the same for 30 plays. But I guess we just move on. I don't think it's true.
Could be a team of people writing together every single play, and then it could be consistent and still, not one person.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
It's hard to say because English was different back then as well. So let's move on to our final one. And not so much a conspiracy theory, but an interesting thought. I already know what I think about this one, but what do you think of the theory that um, the pyramid construction would be impossible in ancient Egypt by just people, and they were aided by some other, uh, beings or whatnot?
Well, I mean, that actually it did happen. Yeah, they were definitely assisted by this unearthly thing called leverage, one of the basic fundamental properties of physics that has been unknown to man for, since our existence. Like we've never known that if you just put fucking logs under shit and angle it, you can actually and angle the total, distance crossed and make it a ratio that's easy for people to push. Like dude,
Yeah, yeah,
that's just
we're
so
in
beyond
complete agreement
humanity
here.
that. Okay.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is a dumb one. I love how
this one's
the History
brain
Channel
dead.
has literally like four seasons of aliens in the pyramids and stuff. No, but one thing that is slightly more interesting is that there are these hieroglyphics in the pyramids that have been found, or I don't know if exactly in the pyramids, but from ancient Egypt, with
Amazing
literally
conspiracy.
like
Hieroglyphics
little
are in the
no,
pyramids.
no, like little pictures of
I'm sorry.
helicopters and things that look like planes. And I thought that was really interesting. I could show you that after the video, but I thought that was
Yeah,
really
maybe.
interesting. Like some really like detailed pictures of modern technology. But in terms of the pyramids, I think that it's amazing that they're still standing. Think about what ancient Egypt was, and how long ago that was, and how long before like even ancient Greece that was. Um,
I mean, it is
Crazy.
really cool, but when you think about it, well, okay, nah, it is really cool. I can't be a hater
Think
on
about
this
it. It's
one.
like
It is
sand
pretty
and
sick.
rock. Yeah, it's crazy that
Well,
they're
now that you
standing.
mention that, look at Mountain. Mountain exists for thousands of years, greater incline, more sheer, and still exists. It's literally sand and rock. Get fucked.
Yeah, yeah,
No, just
yeah.
but it's pretty sick that the pyramids have stayed standing, obviously, for this
And
long. I
and
mean,
I
you
don't know
can see the
if
decay, but
you
it's
can
still
see,
here,
yeah.
which is pretty sick.
Last thing I'll say is that I think it's super interesting how it's the only ancient one of the 8 or 9
Ancient
ancient
wonder of the
wonders,
world.
yeah, that are left standing. And those ancient wonders are so cool, to be honest. The others, I can't remember them all by heart, but it's really cool that there's just one standing.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, but
Definitely gotta
that's
see him someday.
yeah, that's our whole video though. What I thought it was interesting to discuss with you some conspiracy theories, but I think that our like conclusion really was that they're conspiracy theories for a reason. They don't really have
Originals, y'all are fucking stupid.
basically uh
Yep.
but obviously flat earth is
Lol.
real. Like we
Yes,
can
that
all
one
agree on
is
that one.
real. You didn't include that one in this.
Because it's obviously real. Duh.
Oh, because it's not a conspiracy. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
100%
you're right.
truth, man. I
Yes,
know.
indeedly.
For reasons okay, but yeah, that's the video. Thank you guys all for watching. Thank you, Nicholas, for joining as a guest here today. And yeah, I'll see you guys
Oh,
soon. Maybe we'll see you soon.
before we end video, you going to the Illuminati meeting tonight at 8 in Epstein's Island or
Oh,
not?
dude, I didn't want to talk about this in the video. Yeah, we were going
Oh,
100%.
sorry, cut it out. Cut it out of the
Yeah,
video.
we'll
Cut
cut
it
it
out of the
out. I
video.
cut it out. Easy
Okay,
editing.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Shh.